In this unit, we are going to discuss about what is meant by weeding and the plant protection equipment. First, we see what is meant by weed. Weed or unwanted plants grown in the agricultural lands. So it can be controlled by the cutting of the weeds using the implements. The control of weeds and grasses are most laborious and time-intensive operation in the production of crops. Next, we see what are the methods of controlling the weeds. First, the mechanical cultivation or shallow tillage. It is most economical and the weeds are uprooted, covered or cut off. Killing weeds and grasses in rows is a major problem. Next method is a selective burning or flaming, used for controlling weeds in a rows. Next, by spraying the chemical herbicides, we can control the weeds. The selective herbicides like 2,4-D used to kill the broad leaf plants and do not injure grasses. Similarly, Dalapon kills grasses and does not injure the broad leaf plants. Then pre-plant and pre-emergence applications are incorporated in the soil in band of 18 to 25 centimeter in the field. Post-emergence application of herbicide is also used. Adequate moisture is required to activate the soil applied herbicides. Next, direct post emergence general contact weedicides are used in the row plant. Next, by spreading plastic sheets on the field between road treatments are applied to soil surface in conjunction with the planting operations, which means behind press wheels. Then control of weeds by the shading crops. Next, we are using the hand hoe and the finger weedings to remove of the weeds. Weeds in inter-row spacing are controlled by cultivation and those in rows by one or more methods. For inter-row cultivation equipments used are cultivators, sickles, and the wheel hand hoe. Next, what are the functions to performed to remove of the weeds? First, we see the interculture the fields and destroy weed in the fields, aerate soil for proper growth of the crops. Then we are conserving moisture by preparing mulch on the surface. To sow seeds when provided with the sowing attachment, and to prevent surface evaporation and encourage rapid infiltration of the rainwater into the soil. Next, we see the calculations on the basis of type of tools. We are using the disc cultivator, which is fitted with the disc, and the rotary cultivator, which is fitted with the tines or blades mounted on a power driven shaft to remove the weeds. Then tine cultivator fitted with tines having the shovel. On the basis of the power used, one is a trial type and other one is a mounter type. Trial type is a tractor drawn and mounter type is the animal drawn. First we see the trial type consists of main frame which carries a number of cross members to which tines are fitted. At forward end, hitch arrangement is provided for hitching. Then a pair of wheels is provided. Tine in each rows are spaced widely to allow free passage of soil and trash around them. The depth of working is set roughly by adjusting tine in their clamps. Next, we see the spring loaded tines. Tines are hinged to frame and loaded with a spring so that it swing back when an obstacle is encountered. Each tine is provided with the two heavy coil springs pre-tensioned to ensure minimum movement except when an obstacle is encountered. Then spring operate when points strike roots or large stones to prevent the damage of the implement. As obstructions passes, tines are automatically reset. Tines are made of the high carbon steels. Gauge wheel provided for controlling the depth. Next, rigid tine. Tines do not reflect during work in the field. Tines are bolted to frame. Spacing of tine is changed by slackening the bolts and sliding the braces. As rigid tines are mounted, spacing is adjusted easily. Gauge wheel provides to adjust the depth. Next, we see the animal drawn implement. Mostly 3 tine cultivated with seeding attachments are provided. Also used for secondary tillage. Also used for the interculture of row crops. Next, we see the different types of hand hoe used for removing the weeds. First, we see the V-blade hand hoe, a 3-tined hand hoe, wheel hoe, twin wheel hoe, then conoweeder. This picture shows the V-blade hand hoe, then second 3-tined hand hoe, then wheel hoe and the twin wheel hoes. Next, first we see the V-blade hand hoe. The V-blade hand hoe is a long-handled weeding for operation in between the row crops. The hoe consists of a V blade, arms, ferrule, and a wooden handle. The arms are welded to the ferrule. Wooden handle is inserted in the ferrule. The blade of the hoe is the important component which enters into the soil and perform the cutting and uprooting of the weeds. Next we see the use of V blade hand hoe. The hoe is used for weeding of the vegetable crop planted in the rows and the earthing up operation. Next we see the three-tined hand hoe. The three-tined hand hoe, also known as a grubber, is one of the widely used hoe for weeding and interculture in the horticulture crops. It is a long-handled weeding tool and can be easily maneuvered between the rows and around the plants. The working blade tips are forged, flattened, and the sharpened. The uses is three-tined hand hoes are used for weeding, interculture, and breaking of the soil crust in the vegetable garden, and also in the flower crops and the nurseries. Next, we see the wheel hoe. The wheel hoe is widely accepted weeding tool for weeding and the intercultural operation in the row crops. It is a long-handled tool operated by push and pull action. The general construction of wheel hoe comprises of wheel assembly, miniature tool frame, a set of replaceable tools, and a handle assembly. The uses is weeding and interculture of vegetables and other crops sown in the field. Next we see the twin wheel hoe. Twin wheel hoe consists of a twin wheels frame, V blade with tine, U clamp, scraper, and the handle. The cutting and uprooting of weed in the field is done through push and pull type action of the equipment. The equipment is operated at optimum condition of field for the better output. Its uses is for weeding and interculture of vegetables and other crops sown in the rows. Next we see the conoweeder. The conoweeder consists of two rotors, float frames, and the handle. The rotors are cone frustum in shape, smooth, and serrated strips are welded on the surface along its length. The rotors are mounted in tandem with opposite orientation. The float rotors and handles are joined to the frame. The float controls working depth and does not allow rotor assembly to sink in the puddle. The conoweeder is operated by pushing action by back and forth movement in the top of 3 centimeter depth of the soil. Then the uses of conoweeder is used to remove weeds between row of paddy crop efficiently. It is easy to operate and does not sink in the puddle. Next we see the sickling and the mowing. Sickling is also done by hand with the help of sickle to remove the top growth of weeds to prevent seed production and to starve the underground parts. It is popular in slopy area where only the tall weed growth is sickled, leaving the root system to hold the soil in the place to prevent the soil erosion. Mowing is a machine operated practices done on the roadsides and in the lawns. Next, mechanical weeder. First we see the dry land weeder. It is used for weeding in row crop for removing the shallow rooted woods. Next, useful in the dry land and borderland crops, and it's also in the ideal soil moisture content of 8 to 10 percentage. And also worked at the extreme end of the arms. 120 millimeter diameter star wheel is fixed. A cutting blade is fitted to the arm, 200 mm to the back of the star wheel. The star wheel facilitated easy movement of the tool. The operated width of the blade is 120 mm, ideal to remove the shallow rooted weeds. The workable moisture content has to be the 8 to 10 percentage. This diagram shows the mechanical weeder. And first is a dry land weeder, then second two diagram is a power rotary weeder. Next we see the power rotary weeder for mechanical control of weeds in crops such as sugarcane, cotton, tomato, and pulses whose row spacing is more than 45 cm. The rotary weeds consist of 3 rows of disc mounted with a 6 number of curved blades in opposite directions alternately in each disc. These blades when rotating enable cuttings and mulching the soil. Next, the width of coverage of the rotary tiller is 500 mm and depth of the operation can be adjusted to weed and mulch the soil in the cropped field. Next, an intercultivator cum earthing up equipment was developed and fitted to the standard tractor drawn ridger. Three number of sweep type blades are affixed to the ridger frame for accomplishing the weeding operation in between the standing rows of the crops. Three ridger bottom fitted behind the sweep blade work on the loosening soil moss and aid in earthing up by forming ridges and furrows. Weeding efficiency is 61%. Next we see the tractor drawn come weeding and the earthing up equipment. For weeding and the interculture operation in between the row crops in a single pass, an intercultivator come earthing up equipment was developed and fitted to the standard tractor drawn ridger. Three number of sweep type blades are affixed to the ridger frame for accomplishing the weeding operation in between standing rows of the crops. Three ridger bottom fitted behind the sweep blade work on the loosened soil moss and aid in earthing up by forming ridges and furrows. Its working efficiency is 61%. This picture shows the mechanical weeder of the equipment. Next, tractor operated multi-row rotary weeder for weeding and the intercultural operation in between the row crops like sugarcane, cotton, maize, etc. in a single pass. The multi-row rotary weeder consists of a set of cutting blades which penetrate into the soil, removing the weeds in the crop rows. The cutting blade has also been used in the inclined plane for elevating and converging the soil. The rotating blades are used to cut the weeds and pulverizing the soil. Its working efficiency is the 71%. Next we see what is meant by corner weeder. Corner weeder is the most important using equipment in removing the weeds. The corner weeder has two conical rotors mounted in a tandem with opposite orientation. Smooth and serrated blades mounted alternatively on the rotor uproot and bury weeds because the rotor creates a back and forth movement in from the top 3 cm of the soil. The chronometer can satisfactorily weed in a single flower pass without a push-pull movement. It is easy to operate by the single operator. The weed does not sink in puddled soil, then the field capacity of the chronometer is 0.18 hectare per day. It has a star peg type and a twin hoe wheel weedings. Next, this picture shows the chronometer. Next, the chronometer has two conical rotors mounted in tandem with opposite orientation. Smooth and serrated blades mounted alternatively on the rotor uproot and bury weeds because the rotor creates a back and forth movement in the top 3 cm of the soil. The chronometer can satisfactorily weed in a single flower pass without a push-pull movement. Then dimension is a 37 cm into 1.4 meter. Then the silent feature of chronometer is easy to operate by the single operator. The weeder does not sink in puddled soil. A field capacity is 0.18 hectare per day. Next, we see the parts of the chronometer. It has a float assembly, cone, Y clamps, then handle assembly. Then we have the cone holder, serrated blades, and the plain blades. Next we see the dry land weeder. The dry land weeder with long handled are suitable for weeding in row crops in rainfed and the garden plant. The long handled eliminates the back strains and provides comfort to the operator for continuously operation in the standing posture. This is a long handled tool and consists of 25 mm diameter and 1200 mm long conduct pipe over which 520 mm long handle is fitted. To the bottom of the vertical pipe frame, two arms made of 250 into 25 into 3 mm of MS plates are fitted. At the extreme end of the arm, 120 mm diameter star wheel is fixed. The cutting blade is fitted to the bottom portion of the arm and 200 mm to the back of the star wheel. The star wheel facilitated easy movement of the tool. Next, the cutting blade cuts the weed. The operating width of the blade is 120 mm. The star type is suitable for operation in loamy and the sandy soil. In the peg type, the star wheel is replaced by pegs facilitating easier operation in the clay soil. The area covered by the weeder is about 0.08 hectare per day. Next, we see the silent feature of the dry land weeder, useful in the dry land and the garden land crops, ideal to remove shallow rooted weeds. The workable moisture content has to be the 8 to 10%. Next, we see the rotary weeder. It is a walking type tiller used for plains and the hilly regions. It is used for both intercultural and the secondary tillage operation, namely stirring the soil, uprooting the weed, breaking cloths, covering seeds, etc. It consists of the 3 HP engine, a rotor with a L blade, rotor drive mechanism, handle and other control levels. When engine power is transmitted to rotor, the rotor rotates until the soil. The rotor rotates in the forward direction and hence there is a forward push facilitating the forward movement of the tiller. The field capacity is 0.75 to 1 hectare per day. Next, we see the silent future of the units, or it is used for weeding in the row crops like tapioca, cotton, sugarcane, maize, tomato, and pulses whose row spacing is more than 60 centimeter. It can be used for weeding in the orchards, coconut, and the areca nut field. Suitable for hilly region also. Depth of the cut is 8 to 12 centimeter. Next, we see the engine operated weeder. The engine power is transmitted to the ground wheel through V-belt pulley and sprocket, the chain mechanism. At the back of the machine, a replaceable sweep blade is fixed. Sweep blades of different width can be fitted to the machine depending on the row to row spacing of the crop. A tail wheel is provided at the rear to maintain the operating depth. The sweep blades can be raised or lowered so as to have the desired operating depth. Next, we see the silent feature of the engine operated weeder. It is used for weeding row between the row of the crops like tapioca, cotton, sugarcane, maize, tomato, and the pulses, whose row spacing is more than 45 centimeter. It can also used for weeding and the intercultural operation orchards, coconut, areca nut plantation. Thank you.